totally stable thing for her to be posting, wishing harm upon Trump voters, wishing that we have no peace. And I actually thought she wrote the exact statement, Skylar, that she wanted us to have, like she wished explicit harm.
To reprimand, because when they went out on tour for publicity, she starts in with all of her political nonsense. And that wasn't helping Disney.
Rachel Zegler's rise to fame was the kind of Hollywood fairy tale that dreams are made of. Until it wasn't. She began as a fresh-faced newcomer, plucked from obscurity to star in Steven Spielberg's critically acclaimed West Side Story. The industry fell at her feet. A Golden Globe win, red carpets, and magazine covers followed. She was Hollywood's next golden ticket, a symbol of the industry's new era of inclusivity and progressive storytelling. Then came the announcement that she would play Snow White in Disney's live-action remake of the 1937 classic. It seemed like a perfect fit, a cinematic crowning moment for a young starlet poised to redefine what it meant to be a Disney princess.
In this elite group of Disney princesses. Can you believe it?
No, not at all. It's unbelievable. I mean, I look at that girl and I have no idea what I'm looking at. It's really quite wonderful to be a part of the Disney family, and obviously to join the league of so many wonderful live-action princesses, but also so many that have been depicted in animation as well. This is the flagship animation that made Disney what it is.
But from the moment her casting was revealed, the cracks in this fairy tale began to show. Some corners of the internet erupted in outrage. The backlash wasn't just about her acting chops, or even her casting as a Latina actress in a role traditionally depicted as pale-skinned. No, this was something else, something uglier. Trolls online decried the decision as woke pandering, a phrase that has become a tired refrain in certain circles. And while Zegler supporters were quick to rally around her, the controversy planted a seed of division. It was a storm brewing on the horizon, but no one could have predicted just how destructive it would become. Things escalated when Zegler began doing press for Snow White. Instead of leaning into the nostalgia and magic of the original film, she took a sharp left turn, dismissing the 1937 animated classic as extremely dated. She didn't stop there. In one interview, she described the film's central love story as weird, going so far as to call the prince a stalker. The comments landed like a brick. For generations, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs had been a cornerstone of Disney's legacy, the film that started it all. To hear Zegler, the new face of this iconic story, tear it down, fans were furious. What was supposed to be a celebration of Disney's history felt like an attack on it.
I know that you've told me before that your version of Snow White is different, and it's more of a 2022 version of Snow White. What did you mean by that?
I mean, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird.
Super weird.
So we didn't do that this time.
The fallout was swift. Social media lit up with debates, many questioning Zegler's understanding of the role she'd taken on. Was she trying to modernize the story, or was she trying to modernize the story, or was she simply biting the hand that fed her? Whatever the intention, the damage was done. The hashtag #NotMySnowWhite started trending, and YouTube was flooded with reaction videos dissecting her every word. But Zegler wasn't backing down. She doubled down on her critiques in subsequent interviews, framing herself as a trailblazer, bringing a feminist edge to a story she believed desperately needed one. Instead of quelling the outrage, this only fueled it further. To some, she was a hero. To others, she was a villain. And then there was Gadot. When Disney announced that the Israeli actress would play the evil queen opposite Zegler's Snow White, it seemed like a match made in casting heaven. Gadot was a global superstar, beloved for her role as Wonder Woman. She had the gravitas and charisma to embody one of Disney's most iconic villains. But behind the scenes, things weren't as picture-perfect as they seemed. Rumors of tension between the two actresses began swirling early on. At first, it was subtle. Fans noticed that the pair rarely appeared together during promotional events. There were no joint interviews, no playful interactions on red carpets. Then came the Instagram post that seemed to confirm what many had suspected.
Our next guest made her movie debut as Maria in Steven Spielberg's West Side Story. Now she dumps the sharks for Seven Dwarfs. Disney's Snow White opens in theaters Friday. Please welcome Rachel Zegler.
In a post, Zegler shared a carousel of photos from the Snow White premiere. It was a heartfelt tribute to the cast and crew, a behind-the-scenes look at the making of the film. But conspicuously absent from the photos, Gal Gadot. Fans were quick to point out the omission, and speculation ran wild. Was this an intentional snub? Did Zegler and Gadot even like each other? The whispers grew louder when Zegler responded to a fan question about Gadot on Instagram, calling her co-star a professional pageant queen. It wasn't exactly a compliment. In Hollywood, where public image is everything, the comment was a red flag. Studios go to great lengths to present a united front, especially for major releases like Snow White. For Disney, this was a PR nightmare. Things took an even darker turn when Zegler posted a tweet that would come to define much of the controversy surrounding her. After the Snow White trailer crossed 120 million views within 24 hours, she tweeted, "Free Palestine." It was a bold political statement, one that immediately polarized audiences. For some, it was a brave act of solidarity. For others, it was an unnecessary distraction from the film's promotion. The timing couldn't have been worse. Gadot, who served in the Israeli military and has been vocal in her support for Israel, reportedly felt blindsided by the tweet. According to insiders, Disney had to increase Gadot's security after she received online threats. The studio was in damage control mode, but the fractures between Zegler and Gadot were now impossible to ignore.
Variety breaks down how after this tweet went viral, the studio was shocked that she would mix a promo tweet with a political statement. As a result, Mark Platt flew to New York to speak with her in person.
As the press tour continued, the rift between the two stars became more apparent. Disney went to great lengths to keep them apart, scheduling separate appearances and limiting their interactions. It was an unprecedented move for a film where the central conflict between Snow White and the Evil Queen should have been the focus. Instead, the narrative was dominated by rumors of backstage drama and the growing backlash against Zegler. The tension reached a boiling point when Gadot gave an interview to Variety, making a cryptic comment about the state of the world. "There's so much hate going on right now. People are scared to talk," she said. While she didn't mention Zegler by name, fans were quick to interpret the comment as a subtle dig. It was a masterclass in passive-aggressive shade, and it only added fuel to the fire. By the time Snow White hit theaters, the damage was done. The film opened to dismal numbers, a far cry from Disney's usual box office dominance. Critics were lukewarm at best, and audiences seemed to agree. Zegler, once hailed as Hollywood's next big thing, found herself at the center of a maelstrom. Fans questioned whether her outspoken nature had done more harm than good. Industry insiders whispered that her career might not recover. And as for Disney, the studio was left to pick up the pieces of what should have been a surefire hit.
Says Rachel Zegler hurt the film's box office with her actions in since-deleted comment. This is the exchange.
But the story doesn't end there. If anything, this was just the beginning. The fallout from Snow White would ripple far beyond the box office, dragging Zegler, Gadot, and Disney into a controversy that showed no signs of slowing down. And as the dust settled, one question remained. How far would the consequences go? And just when it seemed like the Snow White debacle couldn't spin any further out of control, the whispers of Rachel Zegler's alleged Hollywood blacklisting began to take on a life of their own. The industry, already reeling from the film's catastrophic box office performance, appeared to be washing its hands of the young actress entirely. Insiders started leaking hints that major studios were quietly reevaluating their contracts with Zegler, with some even exploring legal avenues to distance themselves from the star whose very name had become synonymous with controversy. For someone who had once been Hollywood's golden child, the fall was both brutal and public. The question now wasn't just how Zegler would recover, it was whether she'd be allowed to recover at all.
Crying on that stage.
When am I not crying in public? It's so upsetting.
Why were you crying?
Oh my gosh, I saw we didn't even see, but I saw the logo and I went, that's my name, Snow White's up there, and I cried my eyes out.
Behind closed doors, Disney executives were reportedly in a state of panic. Snow White wasn't just any film. It was a tentpole, a cornerstone of their long-running strategy to reimagine their animated classics for a new generation. But instead of a billion-dollar juggernaut, they had a cultural albatross hanging from their necks. The losses were staggering. After factoring in the film's colossal production budget, ballooned further by reshoots, plus an aggressive marketing campaign that tried and failed to drown out the noise of the controversy, Disney was staring at a hole in its balance sheet of over 100 million currency units. And here's the kicker. Multiple sources hinted that some of Disney's top brass were placing the blame squarely on Zegler's shoulders. Rumors swirled that the studio's legal team had been quietly tasked with exploring whether Zegler's off-screen antics had breached her contract. The crux of the issue, her highly publicized political statements, which insiders claimed had damaged the marketability of the film. Now, let's be clear, Hollywood contracts are notoriously strict when it comes to public behavior. Actors are often bound by clauses that require them to maintain a positive public image, especially during a film's promotional campaign. And while Zegler supporters argued that she had every right to express her beliefs, Disney's legal team was reportedly less concerned with free speech and more focused on the potential financial fallout. Was Zegler's decision to tweet about Palestine just days after the trailer's release a breach of contract? Did her comments about the original Snow White film alienate the very audience the studio needed to attract? These were the questions Disney's lawyers were allegedly debating, and the implications were staggering.
And you can have that in your persona, but when you come out and the freedom of speech was to condemn the very thing that you're paid to build? Are you kidding me?
It wasn't just Disney's legal team that was reportedly circling the wagons. Multiple sources suggest that other studios with projects tied to Zegler were watching the fallout from Snow White like hawks, weighing their own options. One unnamed executive allegedly referred to her as radioactive, claiming that the backlash was proving too costly to ignore. While Zegler had previously been attached to several high-profile roles, whispers of quiet recasting discussions began to surface. Even her rumored involvement in future musicals, once seen as her safe haven, was now being questioned. One producer reportedly quipped, "No one wants to invest millions if her name becomes a liability." And liability, it seemed, was becoming her middle name, at least in the eyes of Hollywood's gatekeepers. But it wasn't just the industry turning its back. The public, too, seemed conflicted about where to stand. Fans who had once celebrated Zegler's casting as a win for diversity were now grappling with the fallout of her polarizing comments. Some argued that she was simply too outspoken for an industry that thrives on controlled narratives and sanitized public images. Others, however, believed Zegler was a victim of systemic hypocrisy, pointing out that male actors had often been given far more leeway for behavior deemed controversial. The debate wasn't just about Zegler anymore. It was about the way Hollywood handles dissenting voices and what that says about the industry's priorities.
There's been so much buzz about this and about you. What's it like hearing people say all these really nice things?
It's very validating. A lot of hard work has gone into this film, but so much love, truly, speaking for myself and also for the filmmakers behind it.
Meanwhile, the financial stakes for Disney kept climbing. The studio wasn't just facing a box office bomb, it was dealing with a ripple effect that extended far beyond ticket sales. Merchandising, a cornerstone of Disney's business model, was reportedly underperforming as well. Retailers began slashing prices on Snow White merchandise within weeks of the film's release, a move that insiders described as unprecedented for a Disney property. Even theme park tie-ins, which had been expected to draw crowds, were reportedly falling flat. According to one insider, Disney executives were scrambling to figure out how to salvage what should have been a lucrative new addition to their princess franchise. This wasn't just a movie, it was an ecosystem, the insider said, and now it's collapsing. What made the situation even more precarious was the growing divide within Disney itself. According to reports, factions had formed within the company, with some executives advocating for a full-throated defense of Zegler, while others pushed for her to be quietly phased out. The infighting wasn't just about Zegler, it was emblematic of a larger identity crisis within the studio. Was Disney still the family-friendly, controversy-free juggernaut of old, or was it evolving into something messier, more political, and ultimately more divisive? The stakes weren't just financial, they were existential, and no one seemed to have a clear answer about what came next.
Snow White. And of course, if you are a business like Disney, you are leaning into what the movie Snow White meant to the people that were raised on it. People like me who watched Disney princess movies when the world was okay and it was acceptable for us to dream about being a princess as a woman and meeting a handsome prince. But oh no, these big bad feminists now are telling us that's ridiculous. How dare you want to meet a handsome prince?
So for Zegler, the stakes couldn't have been higher. If Disney pursued legal action, the fallout could tarnish her reputation beyond repair. It wasn't just about the money, though the sums involved were rumored to be astronomical. It was about the message it would send to the rest of the industry. If the most powerful studio in Hollywood was willing to publicly sever ties with her, what studio would take a chance on her after that? And then there was the elephant in the room, Gal Gadot. While Zegler had become the lightning rod for the film's failure, Gadot's role in the controversy couldn't be ignored. Insiders claimed that tension between the two actresses had reached such a boiling point during the press tour that Disney had been forced to separate their schedules entirely. The optics were disastrous. Two of the film's biggest stars couldn't even stand to be in the same room, let alone sell the movie as a cohesive, magical experience. But here's where things get even messier. While Zegler was being painted as the villain in this narrative, Gadot wasn't exactly emerging unscathed. Her outspoken support for Israel, particularly in the wake of the escalating conflict in Gaza, had drawn its own share of criticism. Some fans accused her of hypocrisy, arguing that her public persona as a champion of peace and justice didn't align with her political statements. And yet, despite the backlash, Gadot managed to sidestep much of the scrutiny that had engulfed Zegler. Was it her A-list status? Her established box office track record? Or was it something deeper, a reflection of the industry's double standards when it came to handling controversy? Whatever the reason, the narrative was clear. Zegler was the scapegoat, the fall guy, or fall girl in this case, for a film that had been doomed from the start.
I just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be, and the leader that her late father told her that she could be if she was fearless, fair, brave, and true. And so it's just a really incredible story for, I think, young people everywhere to see themselves in.
Snow White is running for president.
As the fallout continued, the public response was nothing short of a spectacle. Social media became a battleground with hashtags like Justice for Rachel and Snow White disaster trending almost daily. Fans and critics alike dissected every detail, from the film's box office numbers to the alleged feud between its stars. And then there were the conspiracy theories. Some claimed that Disney had intentionally thrown Zegler under the bus to protect its own brand. Others argued that the entire controversy had been manufactured as a distraction from the film's inherent flaws. Whatever the truth, one thing was certain: the Snow White saga had become bigger than the film itself. And yet, for all the noise and chaos, there were still unanswered questions. What would happen to Zegler's career? Could she stage a comeback, or was she destined to become another cautionary tale in an industry littered with them? And what about Disney? Would the studio learn from its mistakes, or would it continue to turn out live-action remakes in the hopes of recapturing its former glory? The answers, for now, remain elusive. But one thing's for sure, this story is far from over.
The film received backlash for various reasons in the lead up to its release. Zegler had called the original Snow White movie dated and weird and said Prince Charming was a stalker.
So, what do you think? Was Rachel Zegler unfairly scapegoated, or did her actions genuinely hurt the film's chances? And where does this leave Disney's live-action empire? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and as always, we'll see you in the next one.